Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. We are reading Christianity and the Great Deception, Chapter 3, The Great Apostasy and Syncretism. I realize most people reading this are now, or were, professing Christians. I was too. Most simply cannot begin to believe what I am saying in this book series. I too had to overcome this lie by first admitting the truth in His Word that is clearly stated that contradicts the pagan rituals of Christianity. Before we even begin to examine the doctrines of Christianity and prove what we are saying, let us first simply look at the term Christian and ask ourselves, would Yahuwah ever accept such a name for His elect? Where did the term Christian come from? Very few people realize that the term Christian was a very popular pagan label associated with many pagan cults long before the Messiah lived and died. In fact, the followers of Mithras, Helios, Osiris, all Christians, and Christos in Greek. Christos Mithras, Christos Helios, Christos Osiris, Krishna is Sanskrit for Christ. The followers of Yahushua the Messiah were called by a very specific name, and it was never Christians, it was Nazarenes. See Acts 24:5 and Acts 28:22. The question that begs to be asked is the following. What would a bunch of Israelites that practice the Torah of Yahuwah and follow a Jewish Messiah be doing with a Greek term used by pagans as a label for themselves? They wouldn't and didn't. Are we to search out the Greco-Roman roots or the Hebrew origins of our faith? One of them hinders and the other clouds our understanding, and the other is essential to it. Should we defend the Greek term or abandon it and use the term Nazarenes, the term they really were known by? The term Christos is Greek and defined as meaning anointed. Although it is treated as a translation for the Hebrew word Mashiach, its use in the Greek language is derived from completely different application. It is a Greek word and in fact not a translation from Hebrew at all. The term Christos, was more of a medical term because healers in the Greek culture used all manner of tinctures for various ailments, and some taken internally and others used topically. The first two letters in Christos are chi, rho, and appear as an X and a P. If you put these together, they form an RX symbol, still used today in the pharmaceutical and the apothecary trade, who mix and weigh dosages of medication for the sick. The Greek's tongue blended sounds in strange ways, producing combinations like DZ or does and others. As early as 200 BCE, there were pagan worshippers of Serapis that called themselves Christians. In the Vatican, one can view an original pagan relief depicting Mithras with the words Christos Mithras, meaning good Mithras. Mithraism was the main pagan religion of ancient Rome and became blended with the Messiah of Israel through the compromises of the Nicene Council headed by Constantine and his sons Crispus, 325 to 326 Common Era. The Greco-Roman mindset of translators gave preference to the Greek over the Hebrew language and played down the Hebrew terminology in order to make everything more acceptable to the pagan culture of the unwashed, uneducated masses. That is why we have Christian in our English Bibles instead of Nazarenes. The Hebrew term Mashiach was carried over into the Greek letters as Messiah because the Greek alphabet is unable to transliterate the exact sounds of some letters, such as the sound of sh. This became the SS because Greek cannot make this sound. The Hebrew meaning of Mashiach is anointed king and applies to the person that is reigning as king of Israel. A chosen man was anointed as the king with oil. As we see, the prophet anointed David on his head with oil. It may have been olive oil, but it represents the spirit of Yahuwah being placed upon the ruler. All kings of Israel were Mashiachs, or anointed ones, Mashiachim. It may have been the original word used by Luke in Acts 11:26. However, translators preferred the Greek flavor. and use the word Christian 3 times in the Renewed Covenant, New Testament writings. Simply put, the Creator's elect would never be called a Greek pagan reference to other gods. Here's an excerpt from the book, The Torah Zone. Look at the big picture and keep an open mind for several options, knowing that there is some relationship with the word Cretan. What did the people of Antioch at first call the disciples Cretans, retards, idiots? Don't fall for the excuse, we speak English, not Hebrew. The word Christos, or Christos, isn't English, it's Greek. If we follow the redemption plan of our Creator, keeping the Torah of Yahuwah, we are counted among the citizenship of Israel, not a Gentile, foreign nation. In fact, we are no longer Gentiles at all. Ephesians 2:11-13. Although we were at one time strangers to the covenant, after our immersion, there is no distinction and no dividing wall between us and the native-born Israelite. The main idea that people seem to be steered away from when words like Christian are examined closely is that the original word, the Hebrew word Mashiach, is not being brought to the table, but is typically kept from the discussion. The word Christianity is not found in the scriptures at all. There is no such thing in reality. Misdirection is used to convince the listener of supposed facts which are not true. And by simply saying the lie often enough, it will become familiar and therefore comfortable. In this particular case, the premise is that the original word was this Greek word, Christos, since it is emphasized by those with an agenda to preserve the air of tradition. That is, the disciples of Yahusha all spoke and wrote in Greek. We are expected to pay no mind that Greek is a foreign language to the people of Israel. It's a promotion of the Jesuits to believe that the Messiah and his students spoke to one another and wrote everything down in Greek. The truth is, Greek was a transitional language or translation of the original text, originally written in Hebrew, or the dialect of it, Syriac, Aramaic. Remember, all the first Protestants were Catholics, and they had already been indoctrinated with the Jesuit teachings. What is particularly unknown is the fact that there were Christians on earth before Yahusha, the Messiah, was born, and they were pagans. The Greek word Christos, had come to mean anointed, and this corresponds to the Hebrew word Mashiach, which is not commonly known, is that Osiris and Mithras were both called Christos, which meant good. The word was adopted from Gnostic paganism. The inscription Christos can be seen on the Mithras relief in the Vatican. During the time of Macreon, around 150 CE Common Era, Justin Martyr said that Christians were Christol, or good men. Clement of Alexandria said, all who believe in Christ are called Christol, that is, good men. Rome was the center of Christos Mithras worship, so the adaptation of revisionism to the new faith for this title should hardly be a huge mystery, but this information has been intentionally buried. The word Christian is only used 3 times in the received Greek text, and if it were in fact the disciples called themselves a sect, it would have seemed very foreign to not only them, but to everyone involved. Of course, every Israelite and modern Orthodox Jew believes in a Messiah that is coming at some point. Many of them, in fact, most, don't currently believe in the Messiah portrayed by the Christian faith in any of its diverse denominations. However, if we have to adopt a Greek word for the practitioners of Judaism that related to them as believers in a coming Messiah, then they too could have been labeled Christians. But the word Christian is a very non-specific label when you consider that it doesn't specify who the Messiah is. A true sect that followed Yahusha's teaching did use a term for themselves, and it was Nazarene, Acts 24:5. Even the church father, Athanasius, wrote of the Nazarene, who he called heretics, because they observed the commandments of Yahuwah and were indistinguishable from Jews. Wow. In relation to the Torah, a Christian might well be considered to be retarded. Hebrews 5:12. Spiritual immaturity retarded in growth in the Torah. Hebrews. For though by this time you ought to be teachers of the Torah, whereas no such thing as the New Testament for another 300 years, you need someone to teach you again the first principles of the oracles of Yahuwah. What is that? It is the Torah. And you have come to need milk, and not of solid food. For everyone who partakes only of milk is unskilled in the word of righteousness, i.e., the Torah, the law. For he is a baby. But solid food belongs to those who are full of age, mature saints with minds set on spiritual law. That is, those who by reason of use, by obedience to the law, have their senses exercised, trained by the Torah, to discern both good and evil, which is defined by the law of Yahuwah. Good is obedience to his commands, evil is breaking them. As the actual word that means retard or idiot is derived from the same root as Christian, Creston. The American Heritage Illustrated Encyclopedia Dictionary tells us the etymology for the word cretin. Cretin, one afflicted with creatism, a fool, an idiot, French, cretin from Swiss, French, Creston, Christian, hence human being, an idiot being nonetheless human. Creatism is dwarfism and or retardation. Creatism is simply the word that is derived from the word Christian, Creston. For we have found this man a pestilent fellow, and a mover of sedition among the Judeum throughout the world, and a ringleader of the sect, heresies, of the Nazarenes. The Greek word heresies above gives us our word heresy, translated sect. So we know that the sect being spoken of was not the Christians, because Christians developed later. The word Christianos was used twice in the Greek text as a device of scorn, since in the ancient world it conveyed a much different sense than it does today. The use of the word Christianos did not name the sect, but it was a derisive, scornful label that meant they were like gullible, dumb beasts, or cretins. The word Christians, Latin, Christianos, was a term of scorn traced back to a related word which in history never revised. Well, what do you know? So, slang, an idiot. Christian means an idiot. French, dialectal, deformed, and mentally retarded person found in a certain alpine valley. From vulgar Latin, Christianos, Christian, human being, poor fellow, from Latin. Christian, see Christian. Interesting, huh? Christianity, the false religion of the beast. I do realize this great deception called Christianity is so powerful that, if possible, could even deceive the very elect of Yahuwah. This is the exact same warning given by the Messiah, Yahusha, in Matthew 24, starting at 22. If those days had not been cut short, no one would survive, but for the sake of the elect, those days will be shortened. At that time, if anyone says to you, "Look, here is the Messiah," or "There he is," do not believe it, for the false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you ahead of time. Amazing. Yahusha is warning us not to fall for this false Messiah, or Christ, of which there are a long line that have all evolved from Tammuz of Babylon into Jesus Horus Krishna, aka Jesus H. Christ, as I will show historically in this book. Yahusha, above in Matthew 24, is speaking of the result of the transgression of desolation, which leads to the abomination of desolation. The falling away is the transgression of desolation, or Great Apostasy, that causes all the inhabitants of the earth and the earth itself to be destroyed. The earth is led astray by false messiahs and prophets to disobey the commandments of Yahuwah. This deception is so strong, it almost even deceives the very chosen sons of Yahuwah. This transgression of desolation is spoken of by the prophet Daniel in Daniel 8:12 and the prophet Isaiah. Isaiah defines the transgression of desolation, transgressing that desolates, and great apostasy or falling away, as violating the feast, Torah, Sabbaths of Yahuwah. Isaiah 24, verse 1. See, Yahuwah is going to lay waste the earth and devastate it. He will ruin its face and scatter its inhabitants. The earth is defiled by its people. They have disobeyed the laws, violated the statutes, and broken the everlasting covenant, the Sabbath. Therefore, a curse consumes the earth. Its people must bear their guilt. Therefore, earth's inhabitants are burned up, and very few are left. Wow, that is amazing. In Daniel 8, this is called the transgression of desolation, which causes the daily defense of the archangel Michael to be removed. Daniel 12:1. The word sacrifices in your modern English translation below was added by the translators in error, as I will cover in this book series. Sorry, I gotta pause for a minute. My dog is snoring really bad. Daniel 8. Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said to that certain saint which spake, How long shall it be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice? Sacrifice was added, should have been daily defense of Michael, see Daniel 12:1. And the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot. It is the great apostasy or violation of the laws, feasts, and Sabbaths of Yahuwah that define this false Messiah, as he is the one in whose name the law is abolished, i.e., a lawless one. And the ordained times, feast, and calendar of Yahuwah are all changed to pagan in origin. Daniel 7, verse 25. He will speak out against the Most High and wear down the saints of the Highest One, and he will intend to make alterations in the ordained times and in the law of Yahuwah. There is only one name in the history of mankind in which credit is given for changing the law, abolishing it, and changing the ordained times from those commanded, the Sabbaths, the Passover feast, to pagan rituals, Sunday, Easter, Christmas. That name is Jesus H. Christ. There was never an actual man by that name. As it is not Hebrew, that is an image of the pig of Ishtar, or beast of the earth, that is not Yahusha. Jesus is the latest incarnation of Tammuz, the son of the Queen of Heaven, and the Son of God, the second member of the Babylonian Trinity, as I explained in detail in this book series. In this book, I'm going to define exactly what the Great Deception or transgression of desolation is and how it came to happen. Who was it that caused the entire population of earth to transgress the feast, the Torah, the Sabbath of Yahuwah? In what false image of the Messiah was this done? What image of a man have we elevated in our hearts above God, as God, Yahuwah? I will provide proof, spiritually and historically. Let me say that again. What image of a man have we elevated in our hearts as God above Yahuwah, who is the one God? That would be Jesus. Syncretism. We learned in my book, Mystery Babylon and the Religion of the Beast, exactly what sun worship is. The Trinity, Sunday, Easter, Christmas. We will learn in this chapter that, in fact, Christianity, as created by the Roman Emperor Constantine, is verbatim the mystery religion of Babylon, and has nothing in common with the faith found in the Bible. Though, through Christianity, we have elevated Tammuz, under his pagan names, Jesus, Horus, Krishna, which evolved into Jesus H. Christ, and the unholy trinity of IHS, Isis, Horus, Seb, the pagan god names of Samarius, Nimrod, and Tammuz, in our hearts as God, above God, Yahuwah. And in that name, Jesus, which is a false image of the true Messiah, we have abolished the feast, Torah, and Sabbaths, and are guilty of the great apostasy called the transgression of desolation, and have fallen away from Yahuwah in totality. We have become lawless, and where there is no law, there is no sin. Where there is no sin, there is no grace. We will die dead in our transgressions, having put our faith in Easter over Passover, as commanded. Because we have committed a transgression of desolation, Yahuwah has given us over to believe a lie. He has caused us to believe it more by giving some people little Jesus miracles. The Babylonian religion repackaged for us today by Constantine, called Christianity, we have replaced Yahuwah, Yahusha, Passover, Sabbath, the law, with a pagan Babylonian lie of the Trinity, Jesus, Easter, Sunday, Christmas, and no law. And we are guilty of committing the abomination of desolation. That abominable sacrifice is the blood of the Ishtar pig on our hearts, the altar, instead of the blood of the Passover lamb. As each year we sacrifice a pig, eat ham on Easter celebration of Ishtar, instead of lamb on Passover. We put our faith in the Good Friday, Easter Sunday Jesus instead of the Passover Sabbath Yahusha. One is the earthly pig of Ishtar, literally by name. The other is the lamb of Yahuwah, literally by name. This abomination each year causes the daily sacrifices and oblation of the Passover lamb, Yahusha, to cease on our behalf, which causes the destruction of our bodies, the temple of Yahuwah. I explain all of this in detail in this book series. First, we must identify, define, and expose the transgression of desolation called the Great Apostasy. A false religion was carefully put in place over time, blending paganism into the truth, diluting from the truth, i.e., grand delusion, so that it seems or is believed to be based on the word of Yahuwah, when in fact it is an abomination to everything holy of Yahuwah, to Yahuwah, and has been since the Tower of Babel until now. It's always about infiltration. It is this false religion that causes us to transgress the ordained times, the Sabbaths, and the law of Yahuwah, that per Isaiah 24, 1-6, which leads our own spiritual and physical destruction, but also that of the surface of the earth, the Great Tribulation. What occurred from the time of the Messiah's death until now is called Syncretism. The definition? Syncretism is the combining of different, often contradictory beliefs, often while melding practices of various schools of thought. Syncretism may involve the merger and analyzing of several originally discrete traditions, especially in the theology and mythology of religion, thus asserting an underlying unity and allowing for an inclusive approach to other faiths. Wow, that's the definition of Christianity and every other trinity. This is exactly what the Roman Emperor Constantine did in a purely political and quite genius move to bring peace in his realm. Constantine created Christianity, or rather, sold us on his existing religion of Mithraism, called the Cult of Sol Invictus, solely for the political purpose of bringing peace among pagans. He combined many contradictory belief systems into one Christo-pagan religion by melding practices of all pagan religions and various schools of secular, scholarly thought. He merged these pagan traditions discreetly into one universal religion he called Christianity, and literally altered the original manuscripts in the New Testament to make it inclusive of this lie. He then had the original manuscripts of the New Testament burned to hide this abomination. I will confront these altered modern translations and prove them to be uninspired, to say the least. Constantine originally blended all religions into one to allow for an all-inclusive approach to his new religion, which was actually his existing religion, from all faiths in his empire, and he did this as a political move to unify the Roman Empire under one religion to secure his reign. He then burned all the evidence and forced the new religion on all subjects of the Roman Empire by threat of death. This is known as the Inquisition. Then, by banning all religious texts, then the Roman Catholic Church took control and plunged the world into what is known as the Dark Ages. restricting access to books for so long that no one would ever question their pagan traditions and doctrines. No one could own a copy of the New Word of Yahuwah to know the truth. All those who knew the truth had been executed in the Inquisition or went into hiding. The Dark Ages fell upon humanity in the 5th century and lasted until the 10th. Literally 500 years, the Catholic Church dominated humanity and entrenched this pagan religious lie so well that even today it is not even dared questioned by most. I guess congratulations are in order if you were even reading this book series. You are one of the very few who will now know the true origin of Christianity. If you continue through the entire series, you will be one of the even fewer to know what the Bible actually says. I urge you to stay with me, or at least buy the series. The Reformation that began with Martin Luther, John Calvin, and Augustine after the Renaissance Enlightenment was only the beginning, leading to the protesting Catholic or Protestant Christian denominations. These Protestant daughters of the whore to this day still keep the fundamental doctrines of the Catholic Church, the Trinity, Jesus, Sunday, pagan holidays, in total opposition to Yahusha, Passover, Seventh-day Sabbath, Feast of Yahuwah, which is the true faith. Both Catholic and Protestant churches are Christianity, the great deception. This Reformation has continued among the true chosen, among the Gentile nations, and continues today. I have been engaged in this battle to reform Christianity for about 25 years. It is a process and a slow one, as this pagan religious lie is very well entrenched and not easily purged from the hearts and minds of humanity. Even today, one is excommunicated from family, society, politics, and especially their church for even questioning some of such abominations as the Trinity, Sunday worship, and the name Jesus, Easter, or Christmas, all of which are clearly pagan in origin and directly opposed to sound, explicit doctrine in Scripture. So let us now expose these false doctrines and fundamentals of Christianity by first exposing its origin. It's very true. I get in a lot of fights about Jesus. I used to be a Jesus lover too. Alright guys, come back for chapter 4. God bless.